Welcome back to another episode of the Feisty Heroine Podcast, the space where we break cycles, reclaim our independence, and build the love story that we deserve. First, I just want to take a moment to send a huge thank you to all of my loyal listeners and a big warm welcome to my new subscribers. Whether you've been with me from the start or you're just joining this journey, I'm just so grateful that you're here. Your messages, shares, and support really do mean everything to me. And it's because of you that this community keeps growing and thriving. And today, I have a special treat for you. Today, I'm sitting down with none other than Jennifer Kirk, aka the Happy Maverick. And trust me, you are not going to want to miss this conversation. Jennifer is a powerhouse who redefined happiness on her own terms. She's 63, never been married, doesn't have children, and has built a life that's as bold and beautiful as her spirit. But her journey wasn't always this clear. Jennifer opens up about growing up with traditional expectations, navigating societal pressures, and ultimately embracing her singlehood. And that's when life really started to take off for her. In this episode, Jennifer shares powerful insights on why financial independence is non negotiable for women, how solo travel can be the ultimate path to self discovery, and what it's like to challenge traditional narratives and handle online criticism with grace. So, if you're ready to be inspired by a woman who turns societal shoulds into personal hell yeses, grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's dive into this amazing conversation with Jennifer Kirk. Without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining me on the Feisty Heroine podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here and so excited for everyone to hear your story.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm excited to be here too. You're doing a great job with what you do.
Thank you. So I already gave the audience a brief, bio about you, but I wanted you to go ahead and start and tell your side of the story and kind of where maybe start at the beginning of, kind of growing up and your idea of marriage and how you thought your life would be.
Okay. I was born in 1961, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And at that time, women just, you got married and you had kids, and that was just the way it is. And I just always figured I would be that person too. I grew up dreaming of weddings and envisioning a wedding gown and just assuming I'd have kids and all of that. And then the 70s, really, things changed a lot in the 70s. I look back on that time and a lot happened for women. It's really, if you haven't really read the history on, women in the 70s, it's worth going back to. So at that, I didn't really think that it had that much effect on me. I've only really thought about that the last few years. But anyway, I just, I dated. I had boyfriends in high school and, in my 20s and early 30s. And my relationships weren't usually good. They didn't go well. And I have to say, after doing the work on it, I realized I was making really poor choices, and I take responsibility for that because I do think a lot of being where I am today, you have to kind of hold yourself accountable to certain things. And I know times have changed and meeting men, it's different how you do it, but I do think it's important the part you play and it all. And for me, I just was always choosing the bad boys and things like that. I also want to point out too, on a sidebar, is I've always been really kind of independent and followed my own path. I wasn't a great student all through school. And so when I turned 18, I moved out and moved to San Francisco out on my own. And I've supported myself ever since. I did attend some college, but I never graduated. And so I always just kind of took jobs that supported me, but I didn't really have any career goals or anything at that time. So anyway, that was my life. I plodding along, supporting myself, making bad choices and men, and finally, doing my internal work and realizing I reached a point where I'm like, I think I'm making poor choices in men because I don't really want what it means to be in a relationship. I thought I wanted to be in a relationship, but then I realized I really like doing my own thing. I'm not good at compromise and that type of thing. And they always say, "Oh, when you figure out, what your issues are, then they all work out." And it still wasn't working out because I realized, wait, I think I want to be single. So when I was in my late 30s, I had my aha moment that I was like, "Oh my god, I think I'm gonna be single the rest of my life, and I need to get my act together," and, which because it means supporting myself for the rest of my life too, right? And at that time, again, I was just kinda getting by, doing what I needed to do, but not really a plan for my future or career. So I really worked on like I created a vision. I didn't do a vision board. I didn't do like the physical part of it, but internally I did. I thought about what do I want in my life? And I've always wanted to own my own home. So I said, I'm going to get a job where I can support myself, buy my own home, travel, and just really be happy with my life. And so I got into sales because you can make a lot of money doing that. So I was about 38 when I actually finally started my career in sales. And instead of dating and focusing on men, I focused on my career and my life totally came together for me. Like, it's amazing, really, how just that little switch, mind switch, and going, I'm going to create the life I want for myself rather than relying on other people to, make me happy and create a life that I thought I should have. And so it was really just a few years before I really started, well, I was still traveling then. I've always traveled, but really I made it a priority traveling and I was able to buy a house a few years later, my first home. So at 60, I was actually able to semi-retire. So that's when I started to get into social media and I thought, I'm going to show how you can be happy as a single person. And, my goal was to break the single stigma that still exists because it does still exist. It exists a lot more than people realize. A lot of people that are in relationships don't even realize it exists. And yet they're doing little things that make it happen, There's just the things they say to single people and how they make you feel about yourself, and they don't even realize they're doing it. So, anyway, here I am. That was a lot.
That's okay. That is awesome, and, we'll definitely come back to loop back around to, when you retired and when you started your social media account, because I've been following you for a while now, and I didn't necessarily know that some of those pieces, and I think it's so inspiring because of the time you were having this realization, and one of the things I talk about on here is women's heroine moment, and it sounds like in your late 30s.
Yeah. That it was about my late 30s, and so that would have been in the 90s.
And, like, I think I mean, you were a very early bloomer for a lot of these ideas.
I was. Yes, a trailblazer, and that's why I call myself the Happy Maverick because I doing my own thing, now it's not people are choosing not to get married and have kids, but really for in my time period, it was very unusual, and really, people just really thought I was an odd duck. Like, "What is wrong with her?"
Well, and the fact that you just kind of blazed your own trail from the very beginning, and I think, because my mom is 75, and so, whenever you were talking about the '70s, I got goosebumps because I know some of the history. I know that, like, women couldn't even have credit cards, they couldn't get bank loans, and I don't think women could even have their own business until, like, the '80s.
Yeah, they couldn't. Yeah. I mean, the fact that I'm able to buy a house, on my own is amazing because it wasn't that long ago that women couldn't buy houses, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you pointed out, like, as women, we have to take responsibility for, like, the men that we date and things like that. But it's also like the narratives are so loud, for especially like women. I think there's so much more scrutiny around women being single versus like a man being single and being called a bachelor. So, as far as like, other than, was there like a relationship that kind of ended, or was there any other kind of like aha moment of like, no, this is not what I want for myself?
It was a string of not good relationships and me kind of putting it together that it was a process, you know? I mean, I always knew I liked the bad boys, but it was more than just that. It was choosing guys that weren't available really, and then guys that were available, I wasn't interested in, you know? So and I realized why, because I didn't really want somebody that in my life. It's like I need my space. I like my space. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
You know, so it was easy for me to kind of fall for somebody or carry a torch for somebody that wasn't available because they weren't doing that to me. I was still had my freedom, right?
Well, and since you were so independent, at a young age and, you know, I I was married for 10 years and now that I'm single, I've been divorced for about 10 years too. So I was like, I've been divorced as long as I've been married. And that's, when I turned my corner and realized that I'm happier single, it's like, I don't want to compromise, and I don't know how you feel about that, but like,
100%.
yeah, and so what are some of the things that you love about being single and you hope other women see as a benefit instead of seeing singlehood as like a holding pattern? Because I still think that's a big thing that women think.
They always say, "Oh, you know, when you reach that point when you're happy being single, that's when you find the guy." Right?
Yes,
Have you ever
yes.
heard that? Oh my god, so many times. It was like well, now it's I've been single for so long, people are like, "Okay, well, maybe not her for her," but it's such a common thing. So anyway, okay, so what did you just ask me where I had that moment that I had to put that out there?
No, I think it's related to that. I think that even if a woman is happy single, I think there's so much pressure versus, like somebody saying
Yes.
like, "Oh, your person will come," or
Yeah, yeah, it's like you're oh my god, I just had that happen a year ago, and I'm like, "Oh
yeah.
my god, you really don't get me." Like, it's somebody who's known me for a long time. It's like, "Well, I think you just haven't met the right person." I'm like, "No, I don't think that's it at all." So what do I like? I like everything not everything. I like 90% being single. And I'll tell you what those reasons are, and I'll tell you the one thing I don't like. So, what I like is pretty much everything. I love just having my space, my freedom, not having to compromise. Oh my gosh, like solo travel. Once you get this in the swing of solo travel, you're gonna realize why. And not, I mean, we're all different, so I understand. My sister is very social. She likes being around people all the time. I'm not like that. But when you go on a solo trip and you realize that you can, after spending a fair amount of money to take that trip, right? You can do what you want rather than have to compromise and spend a day at a museum or not spend a day at a museum, depending on what you want to do and having to sacrifice what you wanted to do on that trip that you're paying for,
Mhm.
and you can just follow your own path. And that goes for just being single in general, but kind of like I think the solo travel is just like a condensed version of what living solo can look like and be. I just love it. I mean, some of my favorite times are at the end of the day when I'm just kicking back watching TV, in the evening, and I'm like, oh my God, I just had a great day. I'm so happy watching the show that I want to watch after eating when I wanted to eat.
Mhm.
It's those little things. I mean, eating when you want to, what you want, not having to go, okay, I'm going to make this. And unfortunately, that's not always the case, but that you have to make a meal for somebody. I mean, it's nowadays guys cook a lot too, but still, right? Kind of having to, well, what do you want? I eat what I want.
Yeah, it's like the joint decision making or yeah.
Yes. And also just living alone, I clean my house and I know that when I come home, it's going to be clean. Or if I just want to pile some dishes up, there's nobody to here to judge me. And which is a beautiful thing. I have nobody to judge me. So when I do little things that if somebody walked in, they might go, oh my God. I'm like, whatever. Wear my PJs all day. Who cares? I don't do that very often, but I'm just using
Yeah.
it.
But you can if you want to. I love it.
Right. And it's no judgment.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the one negative is, and I feel it fairly often, but it's still worth it for me to be single is that I have to take care of everything on my own, and I think being a owner, it really compounds that feeling. I think if I was just renting, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal, but having a house and having to maintain it and things like that, and your car and take care of all your expenses and not even the financial part, it's just the handling of everything, right? Doing your own taxes. When your car's not working, it's up to you. You don't have somebody to go, "Hey, can you drop me off?" Just those little things. I'm busy all the time. And when I compare my life to people, because a lot of my friends are in relationships. I don't have a whole lot of single friends. So most of the people I know are in relationships and they all have somebody to share those responsibilities with. And so they don't seem as busy as I am, which is interesting. I feel like I'm always busy. There's always things I could be doing. I need to clean my garage. I need to get out there and pull some weeds, just things like that. But that's also on me because if I wanted to, I could downsize and, like, get a condo or something. And maybe I will someday when I get older. I'm still young.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that because I think there's a lot of things about being single, like the expenses, the labor. I was living in New York for 14 years and after a divorce. And it's funny though, because like my ex-husband was very handy, right? But then like I would date these guys in New York. I'm like, I don't even know if you could hang a picture. Like,
Right?
I'm gonna have to hire a task rabbit anyway. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
What good are you? That would be the one thing I'm like, if I met a guy that was really handy, I'd be like, "Hmm."
At least be friends for a while, yeah.
Yeah, for a
Yeah.
long while.
But it still sounds like other than that, like, you really like being single.
I really enjoy it. I think the thing and I know I talked about this on Lucy's podcast, was it's the stigma that's really disturbing because it really is society. I feel like it's society that is making, especially women, feel bad about being single. If you could take that away and not have it be a part of society and, the pressure that women feel like they need to settle down, if they could just not feel that way and just enjoy life for what it is as a single person, I think a lot more people would embrace it.
And, I mean, as a divorced person, I think there would also be less divorces, right? I think there would be people in happier relationships.
Yes, I agree because they'd be pickier or choosing not to marry at all, but, was really the right thing. Absolutely.
I think naturally people would be not more choosy, but I think that women would be like, "Oh, if I don't have to get married, it has to be somebody really special."
Exactly. Just that whole pressure being removed would make a huge difference. So that's kind of what I'm trying to make happen in social media is just take away that stigma that's out there.
I watched one of your reels and I loved it because it reminded me of, like, moments I would have in New York, but it was something about it was, like, you coming into your door, and it was something about, like and there was couples fighting in the background, and it was, like and I was like, "Oh," like, it just reminded me because I would go out by myself a lot in New York and just sit at the bar and eat, and I would remember, like, being in my marriage, and you said something earlier about, like, things being small, but really they actually end up being very big things, like, not agreeing on appetizers or just, and so I would just hear all these these couples fighting, and I'm just like,
Right.
"Yes."
And the bickering, like people that bicker, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not in a relationship. And if you start paying attention to that, you will hear it everywhere. And just keep that in mind as a single person going, I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to deal with that.
Especially in New York, there were people like, since apartments are so small, like, people would fight and, like, not like, bicker in public a lot, and I was like and so when I was having, like, hard moments of, like, in the dating scene in New York, I'd be like, "Well, at least I'm not part of that." So it makes you appreciate it.
Definitely. And also, I just have a super low stress life. I don't it's funny because 'cause I'm around some people right now that, they have drama in their lives, relationships or kids or whatever, and like, I don't have anything to contribute because I'm like which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, "God, I kind of feel bad because I don't have anything to go, oh, yeah, woe is me." It's like, life is good. I come in, I'm all, yeah, I'm ready.
I want to loop back to solo travel because you mentioned some things about that. And I, it's like, it's so true. Once you start traveling solo, I am even finding it hard now to travel with friends sometimes, even though I love them.
I am too. I am too.
And I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that, like when you started traveling solo, how that kind of started for you.
Yeah, so the first time was actually in my late 30s, and I had gone to Mexico with a friend of my sister, and so we spent a few days together, and then, we were in Puerto Vallarta, and then they went back, and so I had more time off, so I was gonna stay on my own, and I changed hotels, and they went to my new hotel with me, and we had lunch, and then they left, and I went up to my room, and I remember just sitting on my bed going, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do now?" Right? So I'm like, "Well, I'll get up and go for a walk on the beach." And so I did that. And another moment, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I can do whatever I want. And the rest of the trip, I had a great time. And then from there, I just continued doing more and more trips. And yeah, it's so wonderful to experience things without having somebody there and again compromise your time and your money and everything and sometimes they're not doing well and you are and I like to walk a lot. For me, travel, I try not to take
Mhm.
public transportation or anything. I try to do as much walking as I can, and because for me that's how I get out and really see things and I
Yeah.
see how other people really live and all that. So for me, I love that. So somebody that can't walk far is an issue for me first off, but also, they might be too hot. It's just all these things and it's I'm hungry now. Same thing. It's just like being in a relationship, but it's just like compounded because you're traveling together. And there's a couple people that I like to travel with. I know they can count on because they're similar to me, and so we'll maybe go together. It's my hairdresser, actually, a guy, and he's super independent like me. And I go to bed early at night, and he goes out and does whatever he does. He likes to go out and meet people. It's like, okay, you go. I'll see you tomorrow. And so we're really good in that sense.
Yeah.
Like we just do our own thing. We'll meet up and do some things together, and then not. So that works for me.
Like you mentioned a couple those are big things, like temperature of the room, like eating is a big thing.
Sleeping in when you're with somebody, because when you're in a relationship, you kinda know what their routine is, right? But when you're not and you're just even a friend, like, or especially if they are in a relationship and you're not, so they're used to, you know, this and that, and I'm not, like, I'm used to kinda just taking care of my own stuff, not having to touch base on everything.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, the eating is, like, a big thing for me because I am such a foodie, and so when there are certain friends I travel with, and they're kind of like your hairdresser, like, I'm like, "Okay." I have one friend that she wants to spend hours in a museum. I'm like, I'm gonna do my own thing, and I'll meet you at this coffee shop." We
Yeah,
travel very well together, and then, some of my recent trips because I like to plan trips, and and I'm usually, like, going on a trip, and people are like, "Oh, can I come?" I'm like, "Okay." You can come along.
or not. I've learned not to do that. I really am like, I really wanna do this on my own because I know what it means.
Well, and I think, I that's why I find your account so inspiring because I've done a lot of travel by myself, but I usually joined groups. And so I didn't really travel by myself for like an extended period of time until 2021, where I spent like 3 weeks by myself in France.
Great.
And that's where I kind of learned also that like I'm an introvert, but I like kind of turned into like a ambivert in New York with my job and things I had to. But I love meeting new people, and I find that I meet so many more people when I travel by myself.
Yes. I was gonna point that out. You're so right. And that to me is one of my favorite things. Usually when I get back from a trip, people ask, "What do you think was the best part?" And the last few years I've been saying, honestly, it's the people that I've met have been so wonderful. And There's something about being solo because 'cause you're not focused on your whoever you're with, right? And it just opens you up and allows you to have conversations with people that you normally wouldn't, which is the opposite of what I think most people think about solo travel. They think you're gonna just be alone and by yourself, and that's how we live our lives, right? Sad and lonely. And it's
Mhm.
actually the opposite because it gives you the opportunity to open your world up to things besides just even solo travel. I'm now getting off that subject, but even, doing things that you can do, like volunteering, which is so important to me, that whole thing and making time to do that and being more available to your friends. Like, I think that I'm a pretty good friend because I don't have all that other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
can have a conversation with somebody and really listen to them and hear them out because I don't have all this other baggage. I don't so you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I'm here for you. I'm here for you when you're with me or over the phone or whatever.
Yeah, I think Tracy Ellis Ross, like, she talks a lot about this, is like, I don't think single women get enough credit of how we're not, we're helping change the world, right? Because we have this time, because we maybe have different perspectives.
Yeah. Our focus is different. We're able to focus on other things besides just, like, holding a family together, right? So it allows for so much more.
Yeah, like, even you mentioned, like, your volunteer work, like, most people that have families and they don't have time to volunteer. So I actually volunteered a lot in New York, even on top of my education job, like in the summers. That's how I met a lot of my friends in New York initially.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point of there's a lot of misconceptions that people have about being single. And I think like when I've traveled, even on my recent trip, a friend came along with me. I was planning on going solo and then she came along with me. And I noticed immediately that I didn't meet as many people as I normally do. And I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm normally connecting with people on Instagram, I'm normally, like, just having really deep conversations with people." And I noticed that we were more and she's outgoing, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same connection.
It's just different. Yeah, I was in Vietnam about a month ago, and I had seen that somebody else on Instagram was in the one of the places I was going to at that time, and so I messaged her, and she's like, "Well, what are you gonna be here?" And I told her, she's like, "Oh, I might still be here. Let's hook up." And so we did, and it was so much fun. Like, that was somebody I
Oh,
would never have met. Like, if I, had been with a friend, like, I would not have made that extra effort, and it was so great. She actually is somebody she's amazing. What is her name? Esther. I'm gonna include it, in the recap with you on my bio and stuff because she was amazing. So she's
yeah.
in her 50s and she's been married twice. She's from Spain and in her so she'd been married twice,
Mm.
so she got divorced and she decided that she was going to get a motorcycle and travel Asia on her own, never having ridden a motorcycle.
Wow.
And
That's
so that's
awesome.
what she was doing. And she's deaf.
Wow.
And so I met her and I like talk about inspiring. Wow. But so it's like things like that. I'm like, wow, that was a really great experience meeting her. I don't know. I just met all kinds of cool people.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue to talk about kind of when you retired and how you got into this social media messaging and your mission with that, because I think it's really inspiring, and I think sounds like you're able to change a lot of people's lives, and especially, like, I'm assuming one of this woman was your follower, right? So, like, meeting people in real life and things like that, so
It's not really so much of a aha moment, but I was realized I needed to retire. I was just really burnt out from the corporate world in sales, and so I retired a little bit earlier than I should have. And so I thought, well, I need to kind of do something else. I'm like, I don't want to really totally retire. And I just was like, let's get into social media and not knowing anything about it. I mean, I think I was on Facebook for years, but that's different. And so I just kind of taught myself everything that I needed to go to get to where I am now, being surrounded by most people that don't even do social media because a lot of people in their 60s aren't involved in social media at all, So it's kind of, again, I was kind of trailblazing there in my age range a little
Mhm.
bit. So I don't really have any real story on that. I just thought about what makes me different from everybody else, and that was it. Like, what separates me. And I thought, I'm going to break the single stigma. That's what going to be what it's about. And I think what's interesting is I do think that I have done a fairly good job. I mean, I'm not like, I don't have millions of followers, but I do have some loyal followers. And what's interesting is I think a lot of them, because I'm also in the midlife category, kind of being, I'm actually older than midlife, but I'm still in that category of women in social media. And a
Mhm.
lot of them are married and, then, will have kids and things like that. And I think they're a great example of they kind of didn't get it either, and now that they follow me, they're like, "Wow, she really does have a great life," they just kind of assume, and not in a bad way, but they just kind of were assuming, another, "Oh, well, it's me, she's single and doesn't have kids," and they're like, "Wow," because I hear people go, they're like, "Wow, you have a great life, why are people complaining, or saying bad things about your life?" And I'm like, "Yeah," I'm thinking, "You're probably the people that thought that way a few years ago," you know? And again, not it's very subtle. There's subtleties in the stigma, right? Like what we talked about, "Oh, well, you'll meet the right guy," and just little things like that, that just kind of were like, eh.
Mhm. Well, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but I feel like now I have friends. Like, so I was kind of like an early divorcee because I got
Right? And
married.
now you have your friends are following. Oh,
Now my
yeah,
friends are
oh, I'm
getting divorced.
sorry.
I got divorced at 33.
Oh, that is young.
Yeah, so I was married at 26.
You got married at 23. Wow.
Well, I got married at like 26, but
Oh, okay.
we were together at 24. So, with the engagement and the dating and all that stuff. So 22, 23. But now I have friends that are kind of going through their separations and then some that are not yet, but they're in really, really unhappy relationships. So what I'm finding sometimes is that people want to project onto single people because they don't want to look at themselves or
Oh,
like
no.
it threatens. I think sometimes like us being happy
It's a
single and
threat.
just proclaiming
Yeah.
it, I think it puts cracks in the narrative.
Yes, it does, and it's funny because a lot of times, I'll get messages and stuff from people or just notes and comments. "Oh, you must really been happy, the fact that you have to share with the world how happy you are." You know, that whole saying, and it's like, "No, I'm trying to explain to somebody like you
Yeah.
that, yes, I can be happy." So I think honestly, and I've thought this for a very long time and don't want to offend anybody, but I really feel like your 20s, you're still really growing and learning about yourself. I think that people really shouldn't get married until their 30s.
Oh, I totally 100%. I am a case study for that.
Yeah, that's
So, that's part of my mission with my podcast as well is I don't think anybody should be getting married in their 20s because there's this stigma or these, like, little social things about, like, if women aren't married by 30, ooh, like, if you don't have babies and if you haven't figured it out by 30, there's and definitely not by 35, but I'm like,
yeah,
no, like, I did not know myself when I said yes to the engagement.
exactly. The 20s are a big time to learn about yourself, and you should take that time to figure yourself out and figure out what you really like. Because when you're in a relationship, you're sharing your likes, right? Especially when you're really young. You think you like that because they like it. But you could look back and go, "I really wasn't that into it. I was just doing it because that was their thing."
Yeah.
So, I also wanna say I don't have anything against marriages and relationships. I know sometimes it sounds like I do, and I don't at all. I just think everybody's really different, and everybody needs to follow their own path and really take that time to soul search and figure out what they want.
Mhm.
And, the thing is, and I know I'm gonna bring it up soon here, sooner than you probably maybe wanted,
Oh,
but,
that's okay.
take that time to figure out what you want and also, work on a career, getting a career, and figuring out how you can support yourself.
Mhm.
I think women can do that now and you need to do that. I mean, for me, it was late in the game that I figured out, and luckily I did well enough. But you just get married and you assume you're going to have joint finances and things like that. But life doesn't always work out that way. So you have to be able to take care of yourself financially. That's huge, regardless of your situation. And I say that because my mom was kind of my role model on how not to be, no disrespect to her, but, again, the time period we were in, being born in '61, she was a housewife, and my sister was younger than me, and then my parents divorced, when I was about 8, and she'd been a housewife, and she had to go get a job to support us, and it was hard, and I just remember I was thinking,
Mhm.
I don't wanna be like that. I don't wanna have to be in a situation where I'm relying on somebody, and without their financial help, it's hard.
Well, it's never a guarantee. Thanks for bringing that up because I think the financial piece sometimes keeps women in relationships. It definitely kept me in my marriage probably a couple years longer than I should have. And it's not even just divorce. Like I know 3 people that lost their spouse this year in their mid-40s from disease. So it's not even divorce, a breakdown of the relationship. There's just never a guarantee. So it's being able to take care of yourself and then being able to leave. Like if it is a bad relationship, having that financial freedom allows you to leave a bad situation.
Yep, definitely. Absolutely. And you're right about that because I think, there are a lot of relationships that unfortunately are that situation, and that's just really sad. Also, I just did a reel about this the other day about I don't know if you saw where I have the toolbox and I'm just loading it up.
Yes. Yes. I loved it.
I'm so excited. I love that toolbox. I'm like, oh, I have this beautiful new toolbox. I need to get it all organized. And next, I need to clean my garage. But there is something that I cannot explain to people that happens when you can take care of yourself. And it is the most empowering feeling in the world. And I can explain that to people that are married happily, and have their careers and things like that. It's still not the same because, like, a lot of people that I know they were married. They still rely on their husband to do things, as I would too. I mean, hey, if I had somebody to take care of stuff, I would do it. And I'm sure that they would be fine on their own and they would figure it out if they had to. But that's still different than the feeling I have of being able to take care of myself. And I can't do everything. I'm not a handy person. I do my best. And I do more than the average woman does. I know that for sure. I mean, I try. I got my drills and I got this and that. And I'm attempting. And I'll hire somebody if I can't do it. But I'm telling you, that feeling is so liberating. It's the best.
I think maybe you need to do like a DIY, like some DIY series videos where you're showing women how to do things.
I needed somebody to sponsor me, like one of these like these tool companies. I'd be like, pulling out like
But it's empowering, like, we can do hard things, and it's time to start redefining the gender roles and everything.
That's right. I do everything I can until I can't. Like, I try to do everything myself, and then when I get to a point where I'm like, "Okay, this is not in my wheelhouse," then I hire help. Or actually, the great thing is I have a couple friends now where I live who have really great husbands, and they lend me their husband on occasion, which is wonderful. So, again, they're good. They're handy men, so, that's helpful, but I don't do that very often because 'cause I'm so independent. I really don't like asking for help. I rather pay for it.
Well, I think, I was actually gonna loop back around and ask about that because I think that there's also this stigma that, like, single women, like, we're hyper independent and all those things, and we are, but, like, we also know how to ask for help when we need to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, otherwise my house would fall apart.
They're like, "What happened to Jennifer's house?"
House was not looking so
It just fell down."
it just
Oh, yeah. Have you, like, you talked a little bit about, like, the naysayers or the trolls on your account, and I've had a couple on mine too, And, it's so easy to kinda get caught up in that, and I don't know your stance on it, but I've kind of just, like, ignored them because I'm like, I'm not here for them, I'm here for the women that need to hear me, you know? So I don't know, like, your experience.
I have a different stance on that because I feel like the whole reason why I'm here is this opportunity is to show people and teach them that I'm not miserable, sad, and lonely. So I always come back with something
Mhm.
happy
Yeah.
because I'm not a sad, miserable person, right? I mean, ignoring it is not a bad option. But and I do sometimes, like, I've had a couple go viral, and at some point, I'm like, "Ah, this is like answering all these comments kinda gets to be a bit much," which is not a bad thing to have something go viral, so I'm like, "That didn't sound right," but it happens. When you get hundreds and hundreds of comments, it's like, "Oh my god, I can't keep up with all this," and when it's a lot of trolls and stuff and saying like, "Yeah, about you," it's kinda like, "Yeah, whatever, buddy."
No, but it's a lot.
But I always like I do, I try to answer in a positive manner and to explain to them, trying to give them a lesson. And, maybe they're not the person, but maybe there's somebody who's reading through the comments, right? Because there are people that do, they're reading through the comments. And so I always turn it into a positive answer if possible.
I like that, and I think it was on your interview with Lucy on Spinsterhood Reimagined, now she calls it Thrive Solo. The comments about "Oh, you're gonna die alone," or "You're gonna be with you and your cats," and I'm like, I don't know if you've seen it, but the one that says there's, like, a comeback or a Instagram post or something that says, "Oh, don't threaten me with a good time," you know? Like, coming back with something funny, happy.
And here's what's so funny about that. You're right about the cats, and it's like, hey, most people that have cats would be like, I'm all right with that. And I feel the same about, I don't have any animals right now. I don't, even though I love pets, but because I do like to travel and stuff, and it's just like complicates things. So I'm like, now's not the time. Maybe when I reach a point where I stop traveling, I'll maybe get something. But I think again, because I in my mind have already come to terms with being single for the rest of my life. I already kinda have a vision of what that's gonna look like, and I probably will be alone, and that's alright. I'm okay with that. I've accepted that. Plus, there's also that saying, and it's true, there's no guarantee in that either, right? I mean, my mom lives in a retirement home right now. There's a lot of people there that, they never have visitors. So it's not like they're not gonna die surrounded by people, or even if you the other thing that could happen is you could go into a hospital, your family comes to visit you, they leave, you die alone. I mean, there's just so many different ways of how that happens that it's like, what a lame thing to say. I'm going to die alone. Who cares? Whatever.
Thanks for bringing that up because I think what I usually default to and say is, like, we came into this world alone, we're going out of this world alone. No one's going to be with us.
That's right. Exactly.
And I think that's why I am so grateful, like, when I had my heroin moment and when I turned the corner of, like, there's all this self-help, there's all this, like, stuff, but I think when you actually sit with yourself and when you're happy, solo, and single, you just kind of get to a different level, a different place of, no, like, no matter what, I'm exiting this world alone and there's no guarantees. And it's more like it's kind of like a calm and like a peace I've found with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I agree. Yeah, that need to have people around you. I don't know. I just think I'm like you. Like I'm used to being alone and I'm like I know I see how it'll probably play out. I mean, you never know, but like okay, so I'll be alone. Oh well. I like my own company, so I guess that's all right, right?
Well, and I think something you said earlier too that I forgot to loop back to was, that you're not against marriage, or you're not against relationships. And I'm the same. Like, I believe in love. I believe that there are people that belong
Yeah.
together, but I think right now there are a lot of people that are in really unhappy relationships. And I think they would be better off single if they were really being true to themselves.
I agree. Well, the other thing about marriage is as a society, we have evolved so much a lot in that time period that I was growing up, right? that, because now women do have careers and things, and just that whole need to have a family and support each other and everybody had their roles, that's evolving and the need's not there anymore. So it's not as important.
Mhm.
I think it is more for men though, because there's that stat, and I've always read the stats like single women are some of the happiest people in the world. And then recently something was coming up where just in the last couple of weeks I was seeing something that was saying married men are the happiest in the world, and then single women second. And I'm like, I don't remember the men being number one, but okay, let's just say that's the case. Like it's because it was for I'm like, I thought I was.
I'm like, "Wait a minute."
But it's a old role, right? It's the role because they're happy because somebody's taking care of them,
Yeah.
and they don't do well single because they need to kinda be taken care of, and again, no disrespect for men, I love men, I have plenty of men friends, and I enjoy their company and everything, but they just don't do as well on their own. Once women get the hang of it and in the swing of it and realize how great it can be, like, they're like me and you going, "Hey, this is great." Men, no, they need to find somebody to take care of them. Not all, I mean, obviously, everybody's different, but I think that's more common.
Well, there's a lot of stuff on social media about, like, nobody taught the men how to handle the empowered women, right?
Absolutely. It's a hard time that people are going through, and young boys, teenagers, right? Did you see Adolescence on Netflix?
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet because I actually used to be a school counselor. So I was a school counselor for about 14 years,
Oh, okay.
and I saw it with my own eyes that, I worked at the high school level and the middle school level, and, more women were going to college. I remember the girls would, like, look at the stats and they're like, "Well, I don't wanna go to that college. There's only, like it's, like, 70% women, 30% men," and I'm like, "Well, there's just more women going to college now than there are men."
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, it's a tough time for men. They're going through, finding their place time. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a tough time for everyone, but I'm hoping that more and more women follow accounts like yours and just realize that the narratives we've been told this whole time are wrong.
They were, but again, there was a time and place for it all, right? Because again, you needed that unit to survive, but it's not the case anymore, so it's just not necessary.
So, I think we covered some of it. So, I don't know if my podcast is geared towards single women, but also women in maybe not so great relationships that have the fear of going off on their own. So, what are some words of advice that you might have for women that either are kind of stuck in this singlehood cycle, like it's a holding pattern and they're still single and searching, for this fix, or women that are in these not so great relationships just feel like they have to stay in that box because they're like, "Oh, what else am I gonna do?" kind of thing.
Wow, there's a lot, like, where do I begin with that? Uh,
I know.
I think seeing people in unhappy relationships to me is the saddest thing, because I really believe that you are in control of your life, and if you're not happy, it's really up to you to make that change, and so figure out how to get out of that situation. And even though I was always single, I'm a great example of somebody recreating their life, a few times over. So don't think whatever situation you're in now, you don't know what to do next because anything is possible. I mean, again, in my late 30s, I didn't get a real career until my late 30s. And then, in my 60s now, here I am doing social media. So don't let that hold you back. Figure it out. I mean, get creative if you have to. If it means, having to move in with a friend or family member or something for a while. I don't know because there's so many different scenarios on that, people's lives and their reasoning and things like that. But life is too short to be unhappy. And it's up to you to change it. And so for the single people, I guess that are kind of in this pattern, I think it would go back to maybe turn around and kinda switch it instead of like I was looking, right? It was always like, "Oh, I need a boy," and that energy that I would put into these relationships or what I thought was a relationship, they weren't really. was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Situationships is what they
Yes.
call them now.
It's like, don't spend your time and energy on that. Like, focus on yourself and making yourself better, and so I say that well, so it's the same really for both people. It's just work on yourself and, creating the life you want for yourself, and not to say that, "Oh, that guy will come along when you" that could happen, and that's great, or maybe not. Maybe you'll become like us and go, "Hey, this is a great life. Why would I wanna change?"
Well, I think that yeah, that does sum it up. Like, whether you're single or whether you're in a not so great relationship, I think that's it. Like, I think women are pausing their lives and waiting for things to get better with the other person or waiting to find their person for them then to go out and live their lives.
Yeah. No, don't. You definitely can't do that. I mean, I remember so many people, especially guys, would do this when I was younger. When was traveling and stuff, they'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just looking for somebody and then I'm gonna travel." Like, that was a common thing I would hear, especially from men. "Yeah, when I get in a relationship, I'll travel." It's like, what? Why are you holding off on doing something so great as travel? You're gonna wait until you're in a relationship, which is why married men are happiest because they finally have somebody, I guess, that travel with. Right.
To travel.
Now I'm
I
happy.
don't know. But that kinda goes back to our conversation about solo travel because I have friends, that then they got married, and then sometimes, like, one of them, the husband didn't like to travel at all, so she was still traveling by herself anyway, so it was, like, kind of a
Great, that's great.
yeah.
Maybe that's a good way to have a relationship. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think there's so many ways to live your life.
I think the thing that bothers me about the whole relationship thing is that you need to really find yourself and really figure out what's right for you and what's going to make you happy
Mhm.
regardless of your situation. Get to know yourself, spend time on your own, and figure that out. And then create the life you want for yourself, and that could look many different ways. But that too goes back to not getting married in your 20s.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thank you for saying that, and I moved back to my hometown after living in New York City for a long time, and it hasn't changed much here. Like, I mean, my town has a four-way stop. It's tiny, and it's, like, very Catholic, very conservative, and yeah, like, I see girls for their bachelorette parties 'cause I work in hospitality, and they're, like, 21, 22, and I'm like, "Oh, no. This is the mission. This is why I have to keep going." Like, this is because it's still
Yes, it's
happening. It's still happening.
how long have you lived back in your hometown?
About a year and a half.
Oh, okay. Are you enjoying that?
I am because my family has a farm.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
Yeah, like, my dad taught me things, like, thinking of, like, going back to, like, doing things our own. Like, my dad taught me how to, like, change my own oil and, like, do things like that,
Yeah, that's great.
but I never really learned how to, like, drive the tractor and, like, do that stuff because my older brother always did it, but I already made my dad, like, a list, and I'm like, "Okay, these are the things I wanna learn how to do," and then I have a friend, that I walk with every Tuesday. She was a friend from high school, and she has, like, her own chainsaw, and I'm like, "I'm gonna have to totally get into this." Like, it's
Yeah, that's fabulous.
I wanna learn how to, like, light a fire on my own and, like, just, like, do, like, I don't know, outdoorsy stuff, and, I know how to take care of myself, and I've been on my own now for 11 years, but before my marriage, I had never really lived by myself, so it wasn't until after I got divorced that because I always had roommates and different things. So I'm loving this chapter. And so, I learned how to take care of my apartment and did as much stuff as I could because my building, he would charge like an arm and a leg to do stuff. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out on my own. like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So it's definitely eye-opening being back in my hometown after being away for so long and changing so much. But it's also just really refreshing and I've been away from my parents for so long and, it's just time to kinda come back home and my nephew's finishing high school and stuff. So,
Yeah, that's cool. That's good. I love that.
it also gave me an opportunity to start this because, like, when I was in New York, I was working 2 jobs. I was just trying to kinda stay afloat because it's so expensive to live there and, we touched a little bit about finances. So that was part of it too, is like, okay, move back home. I still have my apartment in New York that I'm renting out. And then, I don't know if I'll go back there. Who knows? I mean, I kind of want to move abroad. I also want to keep the family
Yeah,
farm. So
why
there's,
not?
there's just so many things. And I love how you said, going back to what you said, and we have so many opportunities to reinvent ourselves,
Mhm.
you know, and it's not a done deal. And
It's
I
true.
love that. I mean, you've reinvented yourself so many times.
I have. I didn't even talk about, like, before I was 30 and all my reinventions. So, yeah, just go out and live your life and, see what's out there and what, sparks your interest and
Yeah.
lights your fire and all that. Speaking of fire, so my big thing this year is I bought some camping gear. I've always been into the outdoors and I used to backpack and stuff like that. But I'm gonna do some solo camping this year.
Ooh.
Yes. Not in anywhere, like in campsites. It's not gonna be like out in the wilderness where by myself, but just the idea, I'm like, because I like being in nature and stuff, and, to me, that's so, like, I'm into the forest baths and all that stuff, so I'm like, "I'm just gonna go put together my little campsite, build a little fire, get my little stove going." That's a tent.
Because I think a lot like, even some of my friends that I thought were, like, fairly adventurous, when I mentioned, like, oh, like, their spouse or something didn't wanna go on a trip, I'm like, "Well, just go by yourself." Do you have anything specific about, like, what women could do? Maybe not go camping by themselves to start off with, but, like, anybody that's fearful of, like, going on a solo trip or just doing something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think my advice on that would be just you don't have to do anything extravagant, just go somewhere on a little road trip, drive somewhere. If there's a town or city, even just a town for a day would be a good thing to do, right? Because so many people, even friends I have, never go do anything by themselves. Like I'll
Yeah.
go somewhere for a day, right? They don't even do that. Like they think they need somebody with them all the time. So I mean, even if you could just break away for a day and go somewhere for a day by yourself, my sister did a recently, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is what you're talking about. I went to San Francisco for the day, and I just was by myself, and I went and did this, and I thought I'll do this, and she goes, "I get it now." Or so you could do something for a day or just a little road trip somewhere for a couple days or, fly somewhere domestically, you don't have to start out, going to Morocco by yourself or something extreme like right?
I agree with that. Probably not a good idea.
Yeah. But, you mentioned too, the other thing is there's tours and things, which I've never done a tour like for a long period of time because I do like doing my own thing. But one thing I have really learned to love when I do travel to other places is, there's Viator and what's the other one app. And you can get on and see what groups trips that like day trips for a day. And that's a great way to like kind of put yourself go to places that you couldn't do on your own, because it might mean renting a car or whatever and just getting around trying to figure out the logistics. So doing that. And that also, like we talked about too, meeting other people. It's a great way to meet people. You do a little day tour with a group, you get to meet people from all over the world. So that's cool.
I've done that on several trips, or even like, a lot of cities have free walking tours, like, I joined one in Berlin,
Oh yeah.
and it was great. Like, I met this couple from Australia that had sold their house and sold everything they owned, and they had just been traveling around,
Yeah.
the world, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's so inspiring." So, like, even, like, free tours, like, if because that's the thing about, like, financially as a single woman traveling, sometimes you have to, like, choose cheaper places or
Yes, because that is one of the downsides of single solo travel, right? Is you stay at a hotel and you're paying basically the same price as a couple would, which is a bummer.
Yeah, I'm hoping to change that. I'm hoping,
I
like,
know.
somebody starts listening to my podcast and, like, there's a huge opportunity here to
I spoke to a woman about that runs a lodge in here in Northern California somewhere, and she said, "Can we get a fair amount of solo travelers?" I'm like, "Well, and she said, "They're great." I'm like, "Yeah, they are because we're
Yeah.
quiet.
Mhm.
We don't use as much, I mean, we are good people to have stay at a hotel, and yes, we don't make as much of a mess, like, the whole thing. It's like we shouldn't be paying full price."
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think we need to work on that together.
Using half the water. not as many towels,
Mhm.
the whole thing. I
Yeah,
drink all the coffee
quieter.
though, but
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. I'm a big coffee drinker. I probably drink enough coffee for, like, 3 people. Well, I wanna make sure we, take some time for people to be able to find you on your socials, but before we do that, is there anything else that we left out maybe that you want to talk about or
no, I think Rachel, you did such a great job. I think we covered everything, honestly, really, you were great. And I just think everybody really needs to take time to get to know themselves and really figure out what they want for themselves and not let society dictate how they feel about being single. That to me is so important. Do not let society dictate how you feel about yourself. So, any of those people that are making those little statements about, being single and blah, 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 just blow them off. I don't know what else to say. You can't really, you just don't take it seriously. Don't let it get to you.
Yeah, I think it's a really great I just got goosebumps because I think that's so powerful. And that's really the core of everything. Because like, if you're not being authentic to yourself, like, we all have these gifts we have to offer people and offer the world, and the more we're following this narrative, the less likely we're able to find those gifts. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Definitely. Well said.
And well, and that leads me, because I think your account is so inspiring. I mean, the fact that 1, you're doing this as a second career. 2, you didn't really know social media. And 3, it's like you saw a need for this, right? And so please tell everybody where they can find you and how they can follow you.
Yes. So my main social media platform is Instagram, and I go by Jennifer the Happy Maverick. I am on TikTok and YouTube, but I haven't been very good about posting lately. So yeah, Instagram really is the way to go right now. I think it's the right platform for what I'm doing. TikTok, it just it's it's not as down to earth, I guess you could say. You know what I mean for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, well
I'm not trying to be all facey. I'm just showing people my life as a single person.
well, and I think, when you're on this mission to help change people's minds and help change people's lives, you have to go where they are, right? And so
Right.
it sounds like your audience is mainly on Instagram. And so you're there to share your life, but you're also, there for your audience and that's where they are. That's where you go, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me. And I'm actually so happy that we made this connection. I hope we continue chatting and who knows, we can partner on this hotel thing or just,
Yeah, right.
what other little project. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So
Aw, thank you. That sounds good. Same to you. If you come up with a great idea, let me know. We'll make it happen together.
sounds great. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.